Everything I do is purpose-built. Everything I do in my morning routine is so I can control my optimal end state and so I can have bandwidth for other people.
The warrior archetype and the way of the warrior, it is a brutal and unwavering desire to face with courage oblivion.
Be true to yourself, respect your fellow man, and just be everything you can be. If you're not going to be a star in whatever field you choose, it doesn't matter. You're giving your best.
It's the process, not the outcome.
Welcome back to the Mulligan Brothers. And today we have 4 lessons from 4 of the best thought leaders in the space, talking about different lessons and techniques that, if applied to your life, can change your life. So take out your pens and pads because this one is really, really going to help. First, we sit down with Rudy Reyes about having a warrior mindset. Coming from somebody who was in the military, this is a unique perspective where he combines Eastern philosophies that he learned as a child and Western teachings. Let's dive into the lesson.
You speak about the warrior quite a bit, and the warrior mentality, I think, is something that has served you very well throughout your life, and especially in your darkest of moments, coming back and straight into training, Could you speak to the warrior? And it's also for on the level of, firstly from your side as in the military and what to be a warrior meant, but then also, for people who are watching this who might not have that, might not be in the military, how would being a warrior serve them in their day-to-day lives anyway?
The warrior archetype, it's the way. Aside from preachers and holy men, I don't think there's a more misunderstood way of life. Warriors are not trapped with idolatry and glamour. We're not, warriors are not enthralled by hubris and fame. Glory left unchecked in the warrior experience turns to corruption. I've witnessed it in my community. I've even witnessed it in myself. Thank God I got a hold of myself. Thank God God brought me down on my knees quick so I could come back. The warrior archetype and the way of the warrior, it's warrior mindset. It is a brutal and unwavering desire to face with courage oblivion. Oblivion. In that oblivion, you're going to find a reason why you live. And all warriors find why they live is for others. It doesn't have to be kickboxing or military or jiu-jitsu. Sometimes that everyday man or woman that does that 9-to-5 job and still does a part-time on the weekend, for those 3 kids to have some decent food and still struggle at having a decent education. When I see people also that have struggled with weight, being overweight and unhealthy, and I see them walking on the streets or in the gym, I find the courage of those people, the warrior spirit in those people. I'm enthralled with that courage. I'm enthralled with what demons they're fighting. So although, I'm a character in Call of Duty and I have a record for fighting war and I know how to fight with my hands, my body, and I still keep my skills up, those are just tools. Do not confuse the tools of a professional with the way of the warrior. Each and every one of you out there has the opportunity to be a warrior.
Something you've said there is having a true warrior is having a higher purpose above themselves.
Yes.
For somebody.
Yes.
For somebody else. one of the best pieces of advice I've heard, or I feel is, one of the best pieces of advice is, if you're struggling, if you're in a difficult moment, if you can go out and help somebody else, you'll give yourself enough purpose that it'll help yourself as well. And I think when you're talking about being a warrior, it embodies that completely.
Yes.
People who, again, you feel powerless to life and that it's beat you down. But if you can go out there and help somebody else, I promise you it will reward you massively.
Samurai. Samurai means to serve. Samurai, the translation in Japanese is to serve. The greatest swordsman in the world, their title means service. I think that says it all.
You spoke about the power of, being able to call in the jets or whatever it was while she was in the military. Was there any time where you lost that service to others in your mind while serving?
No, not in the military. And my teammates and we are riding the razor's edge of life and death, doing some gnarly shit, deep behind enemy lines, helicopter insert. We did a jump insert. How about patrolling through the Euphrates, through the river, and crawling onto an island with the reeds, with our sniper systems, and searching for enemy boats coming through, or after those Blackwater contractor brothers, I had chow with those men that morning, and they had a couple of females that were with them. They had a little contingent of 5 or 8, maybe. I could tell that they were too casual, that they didn't know how dangerous this place really is. This is my third war. It's Fallujah. And I'm doing a left seat, right seat with the Army. So we're doing a battlefield turnover. The Army has been overrun. They've given it to 1st Recon now to take over. The Army's been overrun. They've taken so many casualties, so many IEDs, so many mortars coming into the base killing. They called me back as an instructor to take a team to Fallujah to create some law and order. And that was the most dangerous place in the world. We get a call that these contractors are in contact. By the time we get to that bridge, they're already burned up and hanging on the bridge. Delta comes in to do a hard hit. They're in Little Birds. All my recon brothers, we're all infantrymen first, by the way. We're all infantrymen, machine gunners, riflemen, mortarmen. We know the basics of all combat. And of course, we're high speed too. I get everybody down online. We bring our gun trucks down into defilade so only the gun is hanging up. Delta comes in on some pretty high speed, tricked out Humvees. They look cool as fuck. They're probably dressed like me at the time, looking cool as fuck. And their Little Bird gets blown right out of the sky right above me by a heat-seeking missile. Wham! Delta doesn't know what the fuck to do. We open up and just start lighting up everybody in that Ville that's got freaking weapons and RPGs and anybody moving to us. That was my first 3 days in Fallujah. Welcome. Good morning, Fallujah. And I lived this way for 7 months, day and night, overt and covert missions. I don't remember ever really doing anything except looking for the enemy to kill. However, I never was angry. By the way, one of my teammates was killed, and one of my 8 of my brothers were wounded, one of them horribly. I had to clean his flesh of his body and his blood all over the bottom of the Humvee after we towed it back. By the way, the men that ambushed us, and we counter-ambushed and smoked all of them, Bravo Company put all their bodies on top of the Humvees, and we drove through the town with all the dead insurgents laying over our vehicles like deer. Let everybody know this is who you're dealing with now. And we took the fight to them. I never was angry, but I knew everything was on the line, and I would never be caught. I would never be caught because I was not aggressive enough. Therefore, fear was not going to be in the equation. I will always be aggressive. That means that fear or fatigue are not in the equation. To this day, I still have sleeping problems. And I still have sleep to this very day because of that. Because when I get tired, sometimes I even get more energy, or my mind races, or naturally my heart starts beating really fast when I get really tired. Or what, like this morning, the cats woke me up and I got up and I want to get a few more hours of sleep, but anytime I wake up, my heart starts beating really fast. I think it must be from the 1 or 2 times I fell asleep. Eventually I'm up for 3 days on mission. And then finally I say, all right, assistant team leader. All right, Dan Weiner. All right, McCoy. You got the radio, right? I'm going to try to sleep for an hour or 2. You got the radio, right? I've been awake for 3 days. We've been running and gunning. Everything's okay, right? If anything happens, you get me up, right? When I fall asleep, I hear a squawk of the radio, because sometimes there's incoming, sometimes, it's combat, it's war. I'd always wake up, my heart's beating. What's happening? What's happening? I still get that response even now, even if it's just the cats that jump up. So, I gotta pay for this. That's okay. At least I can. Imagine what the alternative would be, Jordan. What if I succumb? That means I would have died there, or worse, the men would have died, and then I would have taken my own life. I know I couldn't have lived with that. That would be the alternative. I think some of this PTSD is an honor to have. I believe my PTSD is an honor to have, and I treat it as such, and therefore, do not let it rule me. Understand it for what it is, and try to better equip myself so that I can live a fruitful life.
If you lead a busy life like me and millions of other people around the world, you might be struggling to get your nutrition in. That's where this stuff comes in, absolutely clutch. If health was easy, everyone would be doing it. But it should make it that easy. You scoop, you shake, and you go, and you get 26 vitamins and minerals, and every single ingredient inside this and all of Hugh's other products has been expertly tested by their team to make sure you're getting exactly what you need. And if I'm really in a pinch for time, I'll grab their ready to drink, which has 35 grams of protein, 26 vitamins and minerals, and tastes delicious. Don't just take my word for it though. People like Idris Elba, diver CEO Stephen Bartlett, and hardest geezer who ran the entire length of Africa use this as part of their daily routine. So if you want to find out more, go to the link down below. You can get exclusive offers, like if you sign up to their subscription service, you get 10% off all future orders, and if it's your first time ordering, you get a free shaker and t-shirt. It's also now available in major retailers in the UK and the US. What are you waiting for? Go get it.
Next up is our good friend DJ Shipley, talking about a technique that, if used correctly, can help you in high intensity situations like the military, the special forces that he was in, or in situations where it's high stress, like your job, your business, when you're absolutely destroying it, and then settling back down to earth. When you come back and return, you need to be able to turn it off, because if you don't, then you're not able to perform at your peak level when you're trying to have that peak performance. This is DJ Shipley on Dials and Switches.
The concept that you spoke about today quite a few times was when you were beginning in all of this, and most successful or obsessively successful people who are trying to be great have switches. And that's it, they're wearing the I'm Kobe Bryant, that's it. Everything is obsession with basketball, and there's nothing else. No family, I'm not a husband, a father, a friend. I'm just the best basketball player on planet Earth. And you had this exact same thing, this switch that you would flick on, and it usually remained on even throughout your personal life and everything. And that now you see that completely differently, and you have a different concept now.
Yeah, dials and switches. When you're 19 years old, fresh out of high school, joining a new whatever, it's really easy just to go, I'll be a Navy SEAL. It's the only thing that matters. Nothing else matters. How good I can shoot, move, communicate, parachute, dive, whatever it is. It's a lot of things you really got to be good at. And it's a lot easier if I don't have any distractions. So let me just focus on this one thing. And where a lot of guys make the mistake is they try to introduce a family into that foundational phase. Well, instead of just focusing my first 4, 5, 6, 10 years on developing my kata, my style, my foundation, I'm going to try to manage a bunch of things at one time. I'll try to get a girlfriend, I'll get a puppy, I'll buy a house, I'll do this, I'll take it windsurfing. No. Nope. That's why, piss a lot of people off, that's why I like the East Coast more than the West Coast. There's not any, you've been here, there's nothing to do here. The only thing there is to do is focus on work. You got the sunny California, beautiful beaches, surf, beautiful women. There's plenty of places to go. You can rock climb. You can be in Red Rocks. You can go out to wherever. You can do whatever you want to in California. Lots of distractions. Not a lot of distractions here. There's nothing to do. You can't be more than an hour away. You're not going rock climbing here. You can go to the rock gym, go to indoor rock gym, you can go to the actual gym, you can go to the shooting range, you can go swim. I guess you can surf on these waves, but like there's not a lot of things to do, so you can just focus on that one thing. And as you set that foundation, I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary to limit your options and narrow your focus. I don't want any external factors pulling bandwidth for me. I just want to focus on this one thing right now. That's the only thing I truly care about because it matters. So I'm going to hammer down on this one thing right now. And when I'm older, and you know, hindsight being 20/20, if someone could have given me a gift at 17, it would have been the concept, maybe not the application, but the concept of a dial and not just a switch. Later on in your life, I'm going to reintroduce this to you and you'll remember back. You won't know how to apply it, but I'll show you then. Just the concept would have helped me. Like, this is not what you're going to do for 20 years. It's not. And if you are, you're going to do this whole thing alone. And that's a very common thing to see guys 17, 18 years in their career, single. Like just a long-term girlfriend, they've been dating for 10 years, not engaged, not married, no kids. Then they retire and they try to do everything real fast. That's pretty common. Hindsight being 20/20, if we could just develop this into, the switch is great for establishing the baseline, but if I want to introduce a wife into the situation and then kids in the situation, a dial serves me much better. A panel of dials offer me even more. And if we just say that being a pro is doing everything you do at a super high level, then I would say that being a husband deserves a professional approach. So what would a pro do? If your only job was to be a husband, what would you do? I'd do it 100%. I'd wake up and I'd cater to her every single need. I'd provide funding, protection, livelihood, home, electricity. I'd provide all the things I'd have to. You know, security blanket, that's my job. And I'd crank that thing all the way over to a 10 and I'd live there. And then when it's time for me to go golfing, I'd power down my husband and I'd power up the golf. Now when we have kids, it's the exact same thing. Now there's just 2 dials. Now I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, I'm a whatever. That takes full bandwidth. But if I go from Navy SEAL, entrepreneur, whatever, and I take that straight home, they don't need that. That's not what she needs here. She's gonna be barking orders at her. My kids don't need that. So what do? I've got to be able to dial it up and dial it down. But in reality, that's a very hard thing to do in close proximity. So the people that work from home, that's a hard one. So what I tell guys, I use my transition times. So you've been to the work, you've seen the drive here. It takes me exactly 10 minutes to do it. It's basically 2 songs by Chris Stapleton. I jump in that car, I power everything down, I check my social media one time. I usually roll that at 5 o'clock. I'll check everything on social media so I won't have to do it at home. Doesn't always happen. And then as soon as I get in that car, when I put it in drive, I change the radio station. I put on something super easy, something nice and calm, and I shut everything else out. And I play in role reversal of what's going to happen when I hit that garage door. Who's going to be the first auto that's going to run down? Who's going to grab me? What are they going to say? What are they wearing? And I start to try to predict the future. Where are they at? Where's Patsy with homework? Like how far they've gotten along? What am I making for dinner? And just all the interactions I'm about to have, these little micro wins that I could potentially have and all these potential micro fails. If I walk in this house with CEO hat on or whatever hat on, I'm going to fail over and over and over again. And the 25 things I did right from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., I can undo right now. It's not what a pro would do. If my only job was to be a husband and a father right now, what would you do? I'd dial all those things down. I'd grab both those dials and I'd go, I'd hover right at a 7 or an 8. Come to the door, hugs and kisses. Hey, great to see everybody. I want to do a tea party. Whap, crank it over to a 10. We're painting fingernails. We got pig ties. We got the whole thing. Brontosaurus crawling around on all 4s. That's a 10. She needs me to come down from homework and we need to have an adult conversation. I'll dial down dad to a 3. I'll take husband from a 7 and roll to a 10. Undivided attention. Send it. What do you got? Now I'm playing therapist back and forth. Like, okay, we've eaten dinner now. I'm still at a 7 or an 8, still at a 3 or a 4. Let's go on a 20-minute walk, you and me. Cool. I power everything down. I'm going to be selfish for these next 10 minutes. We won't say anything usually. The first lap, we won't say anything. We just walk. We just sink in energy. I'm just trying to flush out whatever I'm working through right now. Now it's your turn. Crank it back up to a 10. Give it to me. Whatever she's got going on, whatever she's processing, whatever trauma, now it's your undivided attention. I'm not texting on my phone. I'm not trying to multitask. I hate multitasking. You can't do anything at 100%. You can't. Like, let me just shut this thing down. Let me just solve this issue. Tell it to me. Cool, we come back in here. I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about social media. I'm not thinking about trips and ammo and shooting or training. I'm not thinking about any of that because now I have the concept of the dial. And I can power down the GBRS dial all the way to 0. As soon as I wake up 5:30 in the morning, wham, sit it right at a 4. Brushing my teeth with purpose, my whole morning routine. I get in the truck, the music's a little different. Now it's Ludovico because I'm going in for a cold plunge. I'm trying to get my mind right. I'm trying to scrub out all the hate and toxicity, whatever I have going on inside me. My whole morning is purpose built. They don't know I'm here. They don't even know I'm gone. So my husband and my father dial is cranked to 0. I'm not thinking about them at all. And I know that sounds fucked up, but it's not. It's because the next 45 minutes are just for me. I've given you everything else. My morning routine is not about them. It's not about Instagram. It's not about subscriptions. That morning routine is just for me. That fitness is not for you. It's not for them. It's for me. And I do it because it puts me on a better trajectory in my life. That's why I do it, not for anybody else. So once I go in there, I crank it all the way up. When I'm setting up for a deadlift or a big lift, whatever it's going to be, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not thinking about the meeting I have at 10. I'm not thinking about the range block we have that afternoon. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch. Nothing. I'm focused on that one particular thing, and I have a good lift or I have a bad lift. When I'm done, I reset and do the same thing again. 20-minute walk. Hover back. We had to go into a meeting. I've been hovering at a 4 or 5 this whole time, just allowing my whole self to process. Now I've got to go into a meeting. Wow. Crank it over to 10. Give you my undivided attention. As soon as I walk in a meeting, back to a 4. 20-minute walk. Okay, 20-minute walk. Anything happens in between, I'll dial it down. Like, I'm not on my email. I'm not on my cell phone. I'm not trying to 2-hand type. I'm not trying to listen to your phone call and give you my undivided attention. Like 60-40, 50-50, I'm not doing that. I shut off my email, I swivel around my chair, and I look at you. Send it. There's nothing else that should matter more right now. Like, I hate this multitasking concept. Oh, I can have 4 browsers open. I can have a conversation with you and I'm on a Zoom call. No, you can't. No, you can't. And if you just stop lying to yourself and use some dials and really take some practice and use those buffers in between those transitional moments to set the stage, give yourself every opportunity, exhaust every resource. Have I really dialed it all the way down? Well, no, not really, because I left work. I was hateful. I listened to hateful ass music the entire way on a 3-way call, just screaming at these 2 dudes. I pulled my driveway and I walked right in on speakerphone. You didn't power down shit. You didn't power down a single thing. I mean, you can ask the old lady. I sit in that driveway, I'll put that thing in park and the garage door will open. The kids coming out, I'll reshut it. Give me 5 minutes. They'll see in the window, like, come in. 5 minutes. I'll sit there. I'll listen to Ludovico and I'll zen out. I'm like, do not show them how stressed you are right now. Do not show them. They do not understand. They don't know what work stress is. They don't know what I'm dealing with. And at a certain point, she doesn't either. She doesn't need that. She doesn't need me coming in talking about whatever issues we're dealing with. None of it matters. What she needs is 100% focus on her and these kids right now. The only way that I figured out how to do it is to really take a conscious effort on dials and switches. Everything I do is purpose built. Everything I do in my morning routine is so I can control my optimal end state and so I can have bandwidth for other people. And once I do that, I swear to God, it's like a superpower. Like, I can really dial this thing up and I can really dial it back and I can do nothing and I can just recharge my batteries. And a lot of this, that's the company you keep. People are chargers, people are drainers. You met Vernon today. Vernon's a charger. He walks in, you automatically feel better. I can plug into him and I leave every conversation. I feel better. Some people walk into a room and it's like, God, when's this dude going to leave? You almost have to do a 1-for-1 trade-off. But now you know that, now you recognize it. That's just a heightened state of awareness. That's not some secret Navy SEAL shit. That's just normal people reading off the room. It's like when you know that Pam is terrible and every time she walks around you feel worse, avoid her. Just avoid her. And it's not hiding your head in the sand, it's purpose built. Like, I'm avoiding conflict because I know it doesn't serve me later. If I can't control that outcome and I don't have to associate with her, I'm not going to. But I have to have the bandwidth.
When would you recommend
switching for yourself? You know, if you could, with hindsight, with that 20/20 vision, at what point did you need to go to dials?
I think introduce the concept of dials and switches as early as possible. If you think they can retain the information, they can understand the concept, I would say I do not recommend anybody who is setting their foundation and trying to achieve a high level to try to focus on dials and switches. I wouldn't. I gave that to the guys at FSU about dials and switches, about in and out of class, but I did with the context of you're representing the team in everywhere you go. Your performance in class is a direct representative of this team, right? Like, it all matters. And if you don't do those dials and switches, if you're only thinking about football every day, you can't focus on class. You have to be able to focus on class. So in that concept, it is dials and switches, but those are the only two dials you should have. It shouldn't be your toxic girlfriend or this drama you have here, this social media bullshit. You need to take the two things that only matter and focus on those dials. But for the majority of people, while you're single, while you don't have any distractions, really focus. Focus on setting your baseline, focus on the obsession, and you'll know when the time is right. When you introduce a girlfriend, a fiance, a wife, and she starts drawing bandwidth from you, and it starts to become a friction point where, we'll say, before it gets to the point where I need for you to quit this for me, you need to really sit down and think about dials and switches. Like, okay, I've established my baseline. I'm one of the best dudes in the world. Like, I'm hitting my mark every single time, but I'm not playing basketball 24 hours out of the day. I really just need to focus on this game during training, during my individual training, and during my mindset development at night. But the other 14 hours out of the day, I can shut it all off and really preserve some of that bandwidth and give it to you. Because if not, you just run the red the entire time, and it's so hard to stay hyper vigilant. And that's not tactically, that's just a thing. Kobe Bryant, hyper vigilant. Michael Jordan, hyper vigilant. People that do anything at a super high level, you're living inside there. You look at neurosurgeons, like, they're living that world all day long, and it's very hard to power down. It's very hard to unflick that switch because it took you so long to get there. It's like you don't know how to shut it off. You've never done it before. Well, we have to put in a couple little baselines and benchmarks in our day that allow us the opportunity to even think about dialing it down. Like, okay, I'm on a beach, it's vacation, we're in the Bahamas, there's nothing going to happen to me right now. What would happen if I left my phone in the hotel room and I didn't have it for the next 8 hours? Can I set everything on my phone? Can I make sure all my social media is tight and I can just shelf it? And I'll just be a dad with you idiots for the next 8 hours, and I'll just immerse myself and have fun. It's a very hard thing to do if you never practice it, because you're sitting there the entire time, you're just on your phone, it vibrates, and you feel like you have to answer, you have to repeat over and over and over. You don't. Power it off. But if you don't have it purpose-built, like by design, it's a very hard thing to get away from. It's like, why you have the opportunity, why you have the clarity to do so, start to introduce those concepts. Like, how can I dial this down? How can I dial this up? And doing it at the same time is a very hard thing to do. That's why I use the drive home. That's 10 minutes of nothing to do. I don't usually take phone calls back home. People call me when I leave the office. You got 10 minutes to talk? Actually, I just walked into a meeting. I didn't walk into a meeting. I need these 10 minutes because I'm about to go home and deal with, like, life, man. Like, I'm trying to give them 100% of me, and it's hard to do if I'm on the phone with you up until I walk to the driveway. And people don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. So if I've blown people off, that's what it is. Like, I'm trying to make time for the people that I sacrificed during my whole career because they deserve it. It's really what it is.
I hope you're enjoying this video so far. As always, it is sponsored by Huel. I'm drinking their Black Edition today. If you want to find out more about this and all the other products, go to the link down below where you can get exclusive offers like 10% off every single order if you sign up to their subscription. And also, if it's your first order, you get a free t-shirt and shaker. I want to say another massive thank you to one of our best contributors over the years, Brass Monkey. Brass Monkey are still doing the ice bath giveaway. It's down below. So if you enter, £5 donation goes to my son's charity to help bereaved parents. And also, this isn't an ad spot at all. They just sent me these. I think they're sick. They sent me these Brass Monkey merch t-shirts. I've got a hoodie as well. They're just really cool, and I wanted to shout them out. Like I say, this is not an ad spot. They just have helped us. They've helped us with the charity. Not that one. I love this one. They've helped us with the charity, and they're just an incredible company. And everything they do, and I mean this, everything they do is about trying to promote cold water therapy. So yeah, if you want something from Brass Monkey go down below. Thank you, Brass Monkey, for doing this. And yeah, also, the last thing I wanted to mention is we are launching the premium subscription service in the next month, where if you sign up to our YouTube membership, our Patreon, or there's one more, you'll basically get early access to all the videos, a premium higher quality version of the documentary. As we all know, YouTube kind of compresses a lot of the stuff. So you'll get early access and a premium quality version, most likely through Vimeo. I wanted to say it's not launched officially yet, but if you became a YouTube member on the but with the button down below, click join, then you'll also get those benefits. But let's dive back into the video. One of the most interesting concepts that I've spoken about before, and I'm trying to articulate to people on camera, is about unpromised success. And a lot of people think that they would do a certain amount of work to receive a certain amount of success. You know, you pay a price, you receive the reward. That's not how it works. And today I get to sit down with sports psychologist Bill Beswick, and he talks about exactly that, and why it's so important to understand and have an awareness about it as you move towards your goal. Let's dive in with the legend, Bill.
How do you convince somebody to work towards goals without that promise of success, and to also not convince them, but to let them know that it will lead you to where you need to be anyway?
I've just spoken to a coach for an American girls soccer team today, and they've been beaten in the playoffs. And she's upset, is the best word I can say, devastated. But I explained to her that in the national championships, all but one team journey will end in defeat. It's okay if it ends in defeat. It's not as nice as winning, but it's okay. Because what you understand is it's the process, not the outcome. It's the process of sport that makes it so meaningful and valuable in life. It's the things you learn on the journey that are the key things in your life that help you be a better husband, father, friend, granddad. Some people will go all the way and win. And fantastic. Brilliant. But many people, 90% of people in the challenge zone, will only go part way, but it's still rewarding because it's the process that gives you the benefits. The outcome is just cake on the end of the meal.
With some of the athletes that you've seen who didn't make it all the way, they had lessons learned for sure. Like in that whole process of trying to become a professional athlete, you're going to learn lessons. Is it always the case that those lessons are taken away, that knowledge is taken away, or does it sometimes slip out from these people?
No, I think from my experience and the feedback that former clients have given me, the way of thinking when we were working on them as an athlete becomes integrated in their way of thinking as a person. So I think that the introduction of sports psychology to an athlete, you can't just deal with the athlete, you're dealing with the person as well. And there's a crossover. If I teach the athlete how to avoid victim mentality, how to slip into fighter, how to transfer to fighter mentality, they're going to have that in life. When I got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, I was driving back from the hospital with my wife, and she rang my second son, Philip, in London, and said, "Philip, your dad's got Parkinson's. He's gone into victim mentality." And I heard this booming laugh at the other end of the phone, and he said, "I'll ring back in 10 minutes. And he rang back, and he and his wife, Hayley, had Googled Parkinson's, researched it, and said, "Dad, we'll be up this week." It was Thursday, and he said, "We'll be up this weekend with the boys. We're going to have a family action plan meeting on handling Parkinson's." And I was straight back into fighter mentality. So there's a very big crossover between situations in sport and situations in life.
I'm just going to go through some of these chapters, what I can see here, the lessons. Okay, well this one's interesting straight away. I'm probably going to say that for each lesson. But taking responsibility, what's the importance of that? Lesson 1.
Well, I've talked a little bit about crossing the line, leaving your comfort zone of letting everybody take decisions for you and then beginning to take decisions for yourself, facing up to the challenge of life and sport. And everything begins with taking responsibility. If you take responsibility, the number of excuses diminishes because it's your responsibility. If you don't take responsibility, it's always somebody else's fault. You've always got a way out of the issue. And I've dealt with teams who didn't take responsibility. It was always his fault. So you'd say, what happened on the... He did it. And that's the death of a team. So you're looking for people who go, okay, it happened, I will deal with it. I will learn from it, I will move on. So taking responsibility is the start of controlling your mindset and your life's journey.
Frank Gilfeather has been involved in boxing for many years. And over those years, he's learned a ton of lessons. And what a way to finish up this episode with those lessons that he learned. It's very important in life to understand that it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's not always going to be a smooth sail. At times, there's going to be a fight. And Frank describes that in boxing terminology and how we can apply it to our day-to-day life. Let's dive into it. You've probably heard many metaphors in boxing that apply to life. I personally love them, especially fighting. I think life at times is a bit of a fight. Have you got any favourites for metaphors in boxing that apply to life?
I think one of the things for me is showing respect to your fellow man, right? If you do that, if you've got that as your kind of outer core, then I think it makes it easier for you, even when the brickbats start to come and people maybe have a go at you for whatever reason. I think if you're true to yourself, and this is what my dad always told, be true to yourself. Now, I had to kind of deploy that kind of saying on a number of occasions when I was a journalist, when I would have difficulties with certain people, and I would have to be true to myself, even if it meant, and I've seen journalists, for example, having to take all kinds of insults and kind of offensive behaviour to them because of what they've written or what they've said and so on. I was thinking particularly about from football managers. That's the number one thing that comes to me. And they would buckle, and they would think, number one, they would think, well, I've got to go along with this, and because it's my job. I never took that view. I took the view, you're not going to speak to me like that. And if it costs me my job, and if I go back and I've told my head of news, I've come away without an interview because the guy was insulting and I had a go at him, then I would hope my head of news would back me. And that's not always the case. It happened. And sometimes you look for support and you get it, sometimes you don't. But so the thing I think about is, if you respect your fellow man, then you're going down the right road, right? And I think what you've got to recognize is that in all walks of life, there are people less fortunate than you, right? And you've got to remember that. And I think the worst thing we can do sometimes is judge people on their appearance, judge people on what they say or what they wear or what they've done without actually knowing them, right? And I think that's the big thing with social media now. You read something, is it true or is it false? For lots of people, who cares? It's on social media, it must be true. And so they pitch in with their view. And sometimes that can be really unfair and hurtful to the recipient of these insults. And you've got to think, well, hang on a second. These might be decent people. So my dad always taught me, be true to yourself, respect your fellow man, and just be everything you can be. And if you're not going to be a star in whatever field you choose, it doesn't matter. You're giving your best. Give your best every time if you can. And never let up on your values in life. The values that he taught me remain with me today, and I try to pass them down to my kids. You know, not by sitting them down and actually saying, right, this is value number one, you'll do this, value number, just by example. Lead by example, and if you can do that, then I think you're doing a decent job.
Something that was said to me all the time, you know, actions speak louder than words. Yeah. And it's so true. You know, I spoke to you about inspire change. Inspire change to me is mainly through action. You know, if somebody sees you doing something, and we've actually had it today a couple of times, I think, where people are seeing you boxing and just the act, you know, they might be in the distance watching, but that's more inspiring. You know, it's seeing that you actually practice what you preach, you actually do that, I think is a huge thing. Was there other lessons that came through that stood out to you that you learned through boxing but then later applied into your life?
I think one of the big things for me is moderation. And so growing up, I spoke before about, we went to Donegal, I was a kid, we boxed, and I saw some eye-opening, jaw-dropping things as a kid growing up. One of which was a guy called Willie Bannon, who was in the team of boxers who went with him. He was a coal man, right? Now he would carry, I don't know what the equivalent is, 8 stone of coal up flights of stairs every day. He was a strong guy, right? And I'm thinking about the way I put it is he would carry Benny Lynch on his back up these stairs. Benny Lynch was a great first world champion that Scotland produced, and died at the age of 33 through alcoholism. And that's another story which boxing has just scooped up, you know, over and over again. You think, are these people ever going to learn, you know? However, Willie Bannon went on the trip, two of the trips to Donegal, and he asked permission with the coach. We didn't call them coaches in those days, they were trainers. A lovely man who worked on the building sites, a man called Harry McLean. He was a booth boxer. He boxed in the fairgrounds, that kind of thing, and boxed in, you know, in small halls, and he was well down the bill. But he was a lovable man. Harry was, can we go to Glasgow? They said to my dad, earlier in the day and meet up with you in Glasgow. We were travelling from Dundee, and we were leaving on this so-called ship from the Brumallow Quay in Glasgow across to Belfast, overnight crossing. People are hanging over the side being sick, and it was horrendous. And so my dad said, okay, you can go early, because they said they had to meet somebody, but you must not miss this boat, right? You're finished. If you miss the boat, you're finished. So we're all waiting on the boat, still no sign of them. And then the order came for the gangplank to be pulled up. That the sailing was about to happen, and my dad was tearing his hair out. And then suddenly, in the distance, they could see 2 men staggering towards the boat. This is kind of evening time. And it was Willie Bannon and Harry McLean, and they were clearly drunk. Oh, put the gangplank down again. So they put the gangplank, and they walked up the gangplank, got them. Well, my dad was furious, right? Especially because they'd been drunk. So he put them to bed in bunk beds in this communal area. It was enormous, and you could smell the blooming cattle underneath who were being shipped across to Denmark to be slaughtered or whatever was happening to them. And then Bannon goes on, and he was an electrifying character in the ring. He was a southpaw, he was a light heavyweight, but he was probably just a heavy middleweight. Not a big guy, he's probably about 5'9.5". Powerful. He was a southpaw who could knock out with his lead hand, and it was a swing. And so Bannon he had this culture of drinking and training and knocking people out. So one night we were staying in a bed and breakfast in the wilds of Donegal. I mean, there's not a thing in sight for miles and miles. You could see kind of the lights in the distance of little farmhouses on the hills and so on. We were staying in this place. And somebody, I don't know who it was, alerted my dad Here's another worry for you, by the way. Willie Bannon's missing. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and what do you mean he's missing? And yeah, not only that, there's a ham that was in the fridge, which the landlady has identified as going to be for lunch tomorrow. That's missing as well. So they muster the boxers, not me, because I was too young, I was 10. They muster the boxers and they send out search parties. Find Willie Bannon. So they went, I mean, where do you find? It's mountains, it's lakes, it's countryside, it's peat bogs. These guys are walking. And so it was the summertime, so I guess dawn was beginning to happen at 4 o'clock in the morning. And there on the hill, heading towards them, was a figure on a donkey. And the donkey was just slowly going along like this. And they go to meet the donkey, and it's Willie Bannon, drunk. He'd been drinking poteen, the illicit whiskey made in these little kind of houses and cottages all over Ireland, but particularly in Donegal. And he met some guy, nobody ever found out who, some farmer, who said, come home and have some poteen. Well, they were on the poteen for hours and hours and hours. And Bannon was totally kind of out of his face with this drink. So that was about 3 o'clock in the morning. Come 9 o'clock that night, he knocked out a local guy who was about 6'4", a huge guy who was a decent enough boxer, but Bannon used to take these left jabs in the face and all kinds of punches in the face, and he would give that little grimace as if to say, you're not hurting me. And then wang, it would come. And he would see guys falling flat on their faces. He won a bronze medal at the 1958 British Empire and Commonwealth Games, not just the Commonwealth Games. And the Duke of Edinburgh put his medal on, the bronze medal, and he said to Bannon, who was a big star on TV by then, by the way, but Harry Carpenter and the BBC guys always used to insist to get Bannon on the show when they were doing their live productions. And the Duke of Edinburgh said, I've seen you on TV. And Bannon said, I've seen you too. That was it. That was all he could think to say.